A lot of times when Norm would be giving a talk, he would look around the room and he would call us a bouquet of souls. And the reason he said that is because each one of us is unique. There's no one person exactly like the other person. We're all spiritual beings. We're all created by the divine. And it's just so wonderful when you put it in that kind of perspective. There was a movie a few years ago, Bill Murray was in it, called Groundhog Day. And I don't know how many of you had watched it, but basically the plot was he woke up every morning, did his day. The next morning, the exact same thing happened again. He woke up at the same time, met the same people, same events happened. And it was all any change in his reactions to those interactions with the people that day, until he finally had a kind of an awakening and was free from that groundhog cycle. And I was reflecting on that when I was putting together the notes today, and I realized that each lifetime that we exist in, we're faced with the opportunity to become self-realized. And it's amazing that Divine Spirit created this drama that we're participating in. Because when we come into these bodies, very, very, very few people remember past lifetimes. Was I a man last life? Was I a woman? Where did I live? And it's done that way for a reason, because Spirit wants us to have a fresh start, kind of like Groundhog Day. And what we do in this lifetime totally puts us in a place for the next lifetime. So the spiritual progress that we can make in this life will carry forward to our next reincarnation, and we'll break that groundhog cycle. So today's topic to talk about is nourishing body, mind, and spirit for holistic well-being. And we could probably talk all day about it. But Norm Paulsen, the founder of Sunburst, had a quote on here: "Open your body, mind, and spirit to receive that great force, that light into you." Well, what is that light that Norm's talking about? And we read in the Bible, the first creation Divine Spirit did was let there be light. And I remember when I was little, I was thinking, okay, the sun comes out. But it's really the great spiritual sun that Divine Spirit created. That's like the light of a projector. And all the images of creation, all the dimensions come out of that light. And that light sustains everything, sustains all the images, gives it life force, and pretty much keeps the whole fabric of creation alive and vibrant. And this spiritual sun is multidimensional, and it can exist in inner space. You can see it in meditation. You can feel it above your head. It'd be like somebody kind of just lightly touching the hair on the top of your head. It can fill the ceiling. It can be present in the ceiling of this room. It can exist throughout the fabric, and it recharges our bodies and our embraces our inner senses, expands our minds, and blesses us with everlasting love. I was climbing, at work I have an office on the second floor, and I usually take the stairs, and don't think about it at all till this week when I was putting this together. And I was climbing the stairs, and I was thinking, okay, how am I doing this? And I'm realizing, okay, it's the muscles in my legs that are making this happen. Well, what's fueling those muscles? Well, what's the electrical energy of the nerves? Well, what's fueling that? And that's what brought me all back to the great spiritual sun that feeds us information. It feeds us electrical energy, keeps our organs alive and healthy and strong. This interdimensional sun can be seen as testified in those individuals that have had near-death experiences, where a lot of them, most of them, when they recount what happened, they'll see a tunnel. And at the end of the tunnel will be this light. And all they feel from this light is love, no judgment. And it tends to change the lives of those individuals that experienced it forever. Just one glimpse of it. So it can be seen in meditation. It can be a divine intervention, like in the Bible when Paul got on his way to kill Christians, got blasted with light, changed him forever. It can also happen in a transitional state of consciousness when we sleep. It's called conscious sleep. And it's that state of consciousness between wakefulness and sleep. And it allows us the ability to be aware of the self, but not of our body or surroundings. Norm was a real visionary. He had many, many visions, beginning when he was really young. And he always said that visions aren't really an indicator of your spiritual progress, but that they're usually a tool that can help you move through something that you're going through or give you hope for things in the future. And the difference between a vision, if you're in a conscious sleep and you have a vision, or just a vision when you're meditating, visions are different than dreams, because when you have a vision, you usually remember every detail and you never forget it. It's imprinted in your being. They're almost always in color. And a lot of times you have to contemplate the meaning of it for years to really understand what happened in that experience. And it's funny because Norm used to talk about, well, you sit in meditation, you see the tunnel, you see the light. Well, yeah, but the times that it's happened for me is I'll be sitting there and I'll be meditating and I'll start to see the tunnel form. And as soon as that pinprick of light forms, my brain goes, there it is. And then it disappears. It takes a tremendous amount of focus to keep it there. And, when you read in Norm's autobiography, when he meditated with Yogananda after only being at SRF for a few weeks, that sun came toward him, and before it got to him, Yogananda turned the light on, and said that Norm needed to penetrate that sun. So I'm going to talk about some ways that we can nourish our bodies, minds, and spirits. And there's a quote from Yogananda. You must know how to rejuvenate the body, not only through proper diet, but through electrical energy, by developing willpower. You can bring energy into the body by willpower. Each one of you can rejuvenate yourselves. When your body becomes recharged with the infinite source, then you will learn to smile from your soul. When I was going into 7th grade, my parents moved us up to upstate New York, and they bought this. I think it was the third house to be built in this development that was getting done, and it was a lot of trees were around it, and there was really cool because our backyard backed up to a little stream, and so I used to hike down through the woods further upstream, and I would just sit there and I would just kind of listen, kind of to get away from the drama at home and to have some peace and just listen to the water run over the rocks. The other inspirational part for me is the beach, the waves, the rhythm of the waves. I'm not that fond of the waves up north that are constant, but when the waves in the beaches here and further south, they're just very rhythmic in how they come in, and then there's a pause, and then they'll come in again. That to me is just so rejuvenates my soul when I sit and listen to that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about one way that we can nourish ourselves is meditation. And Yogananda said, live quietly in the moment and see the beauty of all before you. And the important thing about meditation is to find one that speaks to you, that you feel, vibes with your energy. But the main thing is to find one so that you can sit and contemplate and reflect and not be disturbed by thoughts and things going on around you. And by meditating and turning our consciousness inward, our inner senses become alive. We become aware of our inner senses. It awakens our souls to the divine's consciousness within and all around us. And it also helps to expand our love for all of creation and for one another. So through this practice that we find for meditating, our inner self or our pure self starts wanting to express itself through our actions every day, how we conduct our daily lives. It helps us make the right virtuous choices each day. And we can stay more focused on the divine as we're working or playing or dealing with daily drama. Joseph Addison, a 17th century poet, wrote, "Reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body." And another way to rejuvenate ourselves is to expand our minds by studying. So many people get caught in the rut of this is how I do it. I've been doing it this way for 25 years. This is how I am. Instead of, well, let's, do some research. There's some new studies out, or there's a new opportunity, or whatever. Yogananda always used to teach that religion and science are one subject. They're not separate. And when we look at the world today and we see how all the scientific knowledge is being applied without really knowing and understanding the outcome or how divine projects it, it's out of balance. We can expand our minds by just sitting in a quiet place and observing Mother Nature. For surely she is the supreme teacher. We can listen to the sounds of the mother and watch the animals and the insects. Yogananda said, remember, ignorance is the mother of all physical, mental, and spiritual diseases. Abolish ignorance. So we've made contact with our inner self, and we're starting to change our ways every day that we react and involve ourselves. And we are expanding our minds by studying and reading and researching. And another source of nourishment is to be aware of how we talk, our speech. Our speech can be a healing and loving energy, or it can be a destructive and not so virtuous energy. And again, it's a lot of times, and I include myself in this, you get in this rut of how we react in the way we talk to certain situations. And we have to get out of that groove and re-look at how to react and talk and speak. Our journey homeward really depends on the choices that we make while we're on this journey. And we really need to choose the right people and the environments that we live in and that we work in. Yogananda said, we become like the people we mingle with, not through their conversation, but through the silent magnetic vibration which goes out of their bodies. If a man or a woman wants to become an artist, she must associate with artists. If she wants to become a spiritual giant, she must associate with devotees of the divine. So I think we're in a safe group here, association. The other important part about being here in these bodies is how to nourish them. And Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And a lot of people don't think about how, as they get older, their body goes through changes. And they're eating the same thing that they ate in their 20s, same amounts. And you wonder why they're gaining weight or why their blood pressure is high or, all the different things that can happen if you don't watch what you consume. Yogananda said, we need to eat to live, not live to eat. And realize we should constantly remind ourselves that our bodies are a temple for the divine. And we need to keep them strong and healthy and vibrant. And so as we go along this journey, our diets will probably change if we're being in tune with our bodies and realizing that different things change as we age. I remember when I first came to Sunburst, we were all eating communally, and I walked in the dining room, the first breakfast I was there. The person, I can't remember who it was showing me around, and they said, okay, this is the raw foods table. I think David A. was sitting at it. And then everything else is vegetarian, oatmeal and granola and whatever. It's great. I'm a vegetarian. I'm in there. So there's a lot of diets out there right now. I mean, you can go keto, you can go Mediterranean. Macrobiotics been around for a long time. Vegan, vegetarianism. But I've always experimented with this kind of stuff, and I've tried different things, and I feel what's vibing with me and how it reacts, and not be afraid to do that. Go ahead and try some macrobiotic recipes, or try not eating meat for a week, or whatever, and just see if it makes a difference. If you feel a change, a good change happening within you. But do your research, Don't just eat rice 7 days a week. Research some recipes, or, there's so much information out there now. I remember when our son was born, there was no computers, there was no YouTube or anything. And I realized how important it was for me to stay healthy for my kids. And so I had this book that had all breakdown of all the foods and how the calories and the fat and, everything broke down in each one. And I wrote down the things that I eat during the week. And I kept doing this back and forth, trying to make sure that I was getting the right ratio of protein and carbohydrates and fat. Now it's so easy. You can have an app on your phone. There's YouTubes, there's social media. I mean, there's so many different sources of information out there that can help us decide what we want to experiment with. Because this life is really a journey, and it's a great opportunity to try new things and not be fixed in a rut. We need to be very mindful how we prepare foods so that they retain their vitamins and their nutrients. And when possible, find organic fruits and vegetables, clean sources of food. I've read different things over the years about how somebody will be really successful in a certain business, but it wasn't really resonating positively for them. And they would walk away from a 6-figure paying job and buy a farm or start a chicken operation or something very different from what they were doing. And they are so much happier, so much more fulfilled. So where we work and how we work is very, very important, because it needs to satisfy our souls. And it needs to have the ability to offer love and service to others. And for myself, being in the natural food business since 1970, it's been a wonderful opportunity to provide clean, healthy food for people. And so many times a new customer would walk in the store and they would have a little hand cart and they'd have like 3 things. And then I'd see them the next week and they'd have more in the hand cart. And then the next week they'd have a shopping cart. And it was just so inspiring to see these people become aware of their diet and the importance of good food, and see their growth in that, and then when they start having kids, they're bringing their kids in the store, and it's very rewarding. So it's never too late to recreate ourselves. There's a quote from, can't remember who said it, but person said, "Master, when do we know when our work is done?" And he said, "Well, when your heart stops beating, you're done." Moving the body is so very important. They've done these studies where they've gone into nursing homes where people can't even get out of a chair, or they're in a wheelchair, and they start introducing movement, and maybe they'll start off with some band exercises, and then they'll move to dumbbells or whatever, and these people, A, get stronger, and B, they start having a much positive outlook on life. So there's so many ways that we can exercise the body. There's dancing, there's yoga, there's martial arts, weight training, hiking. All that movement regenerates the body and the mind. The other important thing is, one thing I realized many years ago was, if I'm watching TV and then I turn it off and go in to sit down and meditate before I go to sleep, I'm filled with these images of what I was just watching. And it takes me a while to, get rid of them. So the movies we watch and the TV we watch is very important on our spiritual being. And does it nourish us, or does it distract us? Are they inspiring, or are they kind of a downer? So we need to tune into that too. Buddha said, to keep the body in good health is a duty. Otherwise, we shall not be able to keep our mind strong and clear. So let's go into our 15-minute silent period, and we can start nourishing our souls. I was talking earlier about conscious sleep experiences. I was a sophomore in high school, the early 60s, and I lived on the East Coast and, was just kind of moving through life, playing sports and studying and not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And I had this series of conscious sleep experiences, probably 3 or 4 of them, really close together, where they were very short, but I would be coming out of a building or I would be coming out of a car, a place that didn't have a lot of light, and I would be blinded by this brilliant white light. And I would wake up and after I had the second one, I would like, what the heck is going on? And it was very soon after that I started developing this burning desire to move to California. And it really was out of left field. I hadn't thought about that before. But I had a really wonderful one in 1974. I was living on a piece of property that Sunburst had out in the Cuyama Valley. And I came into town to do shopping for the community and to meet with Norm. And went up to Sunburst Farm in the mountains above Santa Barbara and to go to sleep. And there was a building there that had bunk beds in it that were for overnight stay people. So I went into the room and took a bottom bunk, and I'm pretty sure JK was on the top bunk. And I went to sleep. And I didn't have a watch, but it had to be like 2 or 2:30 in the morning. I had this experience where I was at a party in the back country near our back ranch. And there was this river that was flowing through the property, and there were Sunburst members on both sides of the river celebrating. And there was music being played, and the blue sky was just this vibrant blue, and the sun was shining so brightly, and colors were all very vibrant. And I looked over to my right, which was upstream, and floating down the river were these rafts and boats with people standing in them, not sitting, just standing up, looking straight ahead. And the interesting part of this experience was that they were all gray. The boat was gray, the raft was gray, the people were gray. But yet around them were all these vibrant colors. The water was blue, and they were just staring straight ahead, floating down the river. And this went on for a while, and then all of a sudden somebody yelled, "There's a fire at the hot springs." And I looked up on the bank on the other side, up the hill, and there were flames coming over the top of the hill. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw this light rise in the sky, and I looked over to my really good friend that was standing next to me, and I said, "Did you see that light?" And he was staring up in the sky, and he said, "It's Jesus." And I looked up, and I saw our physical sun, which was shining brightly. And to the left of it was this enormous golden sun disk. twice the size of our physical sun. And as soon as my eyes gazed at that golden sun, this energy field knocked me to my knees. And I felt like somebody had hooked me up to 1,000 volts. But there was no pain. There was just this energy that was flowing into every cell of my body as I stared at that sun disk. And I felt like my body had turned to marble. I couldn't move. I could just only stare. And I could see beings within this disk, evolved beings, just on the other side of the disk. And then I heard this booming voice. Kind of came from everywhere. And so shall the Son of Man come to all those that are ready to receive. And when I became conscious, I was still lying down, but I couldn't move. It took me quite a few minutes to get my limbs to move. And I finally got out of bed and I walked out in the dead of night and early morning, and I just walked around thinking, what the heck just happened? And I had to meditate on it for a while to understand the inner meanings of it. But what I came to realize was that those souls that were in gray, floating down the river, staring straight ahead, were all those souls on the earth that aren't tuned into the cosmic energy. They're just living their lives. And they're not nourishing their bodies, minds, and spirits. They're just plowing through life like on Groundhog Day, only to be repeated again in the next life. And that voice, when it said, Son of Man, I meditated on the word son for quite a while, and I realized it wasn't S-O-N, it was S-U-N. And it was that divine spiritual Son that will come to all those that are ready to receive. This life is very, very exciting. We have unlimited opportunities every single day to draw on that light, to feel it pulsating within us and around us, to see divine spirit in every face that we meet, in every image that we gaze upon on this earth, in this dimension. What a blessing. What a blessing that the evolved ancient ones have laid out a course of action for anyone to receive that light, to embrace that light, and to penetrate that life into cosmic consciousness. We have that opportunity every second. Just have to keep encouraging one another, putting one foot in front of the other, not dwelling on past, things, not looking to the future, but be in the moment. Celebrate the moment. Please follow me in a closing prayer. Almighty Spirit, our Father and Mother, we are your children, and we need instruction and guidance on how to draw ever so closer to the source of all life, to you, Almighty Spirit. Please open up our inner senses, expand our intuition, that we might grasp the cosmic forces and the cosmic truths that are emanating from your Son. We love you and thank you. Amen.
Turning whirl in motion, set us into play. The same returns, release, restores us in our day. And in the frontmost part, my life, I keep it sealed. In simple truth, I am a wheel, fashioned on a wheel by hands that love to spin, hands that wove the earth to sky, hands that healed the sick and hands that set the stone, hands that rock the babe to sleep, and I know the cradle of my soul. How could this world lose sight of you? How could it ever let you out of the view? From such a glorious start to such a tragic end, all I know through it all in my life, I want you back again. I know I'll find you, I know I'll see you, I long to meet you, I long to be in you. I know I'll find you, I know I'll see you, I long to meet you, I long to be in you. I could be there to swear the stream is not but a trickle from the rocks. You hear my buoyant laughter, soothing sounds of spilling waters. Lo, my streams become a river, and my joys will fill up oceans. I know I'll find you, I know I'll see you. I long to meet you, I long to be in you. I know I'll find you, I know I'll see you. I long to meet you, I long to be in you. I could be there in that place, the silent waiting, holding space, when your heart is asking about its next breath. I could be riding in that wind, I could be riding in that wind, I could be riding in that wind. I know I'll find you, I know I'll see you. I long to meet you, I long to be in you. I know I'll find you, I know I'll see you. I long to meet you, I long to be in you. A turning, whirling motion set us into play. The same returns, release, restores us in our day. And in the frontmost part, my life, I keep it sealed. In simple truth, I am